Hi, it's Bud here from Easy Mind Coaching and Hypnotherapy. One of the things I really do with my clients is help them through their emotional issues, their emotional blockages. And it's very useful to ask what an emotion is. Quite often we think of emotions as being something very solid, and they kind of rule our lives because what our emotions do is they make us behave in certain ways. And until we uh, don't examine what an emotion is, we end up by default behaving in ways in which we may not like. We may end up reacting emotionally in our lives to things that trigger us without quite realizing why. And secondly, we may have really dense, dark, set emotions such as sadness or despair, which govern the way we feel about ourselves, the way we feel about things in our lives, but we don't really know how, why, or what to do about them. So in order to simplify things, what I do is I model emotions in a particular way with my clients. And this is that what an emotion is, it's essentially a feeling, a sensation somewhere inside our body. There's a feeling, a biological sense that something is going on. And that sensation is wrapped up together with a mental conceptualization, a story. So a feeling, a sensation, together with a story, creates what is an emotion. And this is why our emotions tend to rule our lives a lot, because they've been created to at particular times during our journey, and they are created as a response, a reaction to the environment. For instance, if you think back on your lives, what you remember are things that had a high emotional charge to them. And what I mean by that is, for instance, if you remember the highlights in your life when you were either really scared, terrified, you had a large emotional negative experience, like a phobia, and you'd remember that very clearly like it was yesterday. Or these highlights in your life that are really positive emotions, like, for instance, let's say when you partnered up with someone or you had a child or you got a puppy, then those positive emotions also create this high emotional charge, and we tend to remember them. So these large feelings that came up at that time kind of become this emotion that gets stuck during that time. So for instance, if someone has a phobia of flying, they'll have a sensation about that flying. There'll be stuckness in their body somewhere. There'll be this tightness, constriction, etc., together with the story that this is all about flying. And they'll remember the experience, for instance, when they go on their first flight and they had to get off it. So all of that is wrapped together emotionally as an emotion, as a package, the feeling, the sensation together with the story. How do you dissolve this? Well, the first thing to do is that this coupling is what creates that emotion, and that's where the tightness is. So it's impossible to move that around or work with it or let go of it. And the first thing we need to do is we need to unhook the story from the sensation. Realize they're two separate things. There's a story and there's the sensation. So for instance, if someone had a story about that flying experience, then we start to unhook that story and say, well, did you die? Is every flight doomed to failure? Each time you get on a plane, does that mean it's certain death for you? And as they start to examine that story, they start to realize that it's not really true. It's just, it has assumptions about reality in it. All of our stories about life aren't really true. They are assumptions we've made about life. So as they start to unhook and question that story and notice that that story isn't really real, what happens is a loosening happens, and then we can start to work on the sensation as well, the feeling. So is that feeling you get inside, where is it? And how do we release that? Now there are techniques to do that. And as we uncouple these two, and we take care of the story, and we release the sensation, what we find is the emotional blockage tends to dissipate, tends to go away, lessens greatly, and then eventually it goes. So this is how we get over emotional stuff in our lives. We uncouple the story and the sensations. We deal with the story separately. We deal with the sensation separately. And then thereafter, the emotion changes and we find that we're behaving differently in life. We're not reacting to the same emotional. And also, this is the greatest thing, we start to feel differently about ourselves. The reason most people don't feel good about themselves is because they have these trapped emotions inside them. So when we start to tackle those old stories and sensations and dissolve them, suddenly they start to feel better about themselves. And then, this is the best thing, it creates an opportunity to create a new, better, greater life for themselves. I hope this has been useful. Please do subscribe if you liked it. And was it on this side? Probably on this side. And let's catch up again soon. Thanks very much.